The Water Canyon Trail in Hildale, Utah is a beautiful place that offers spectacular views of pools, slot-like passageways, waterfalls, and so much more. This hike has a little bit of something for everyone. If you want an easier hike that just ends up at the waterfall, you can do the shorter trail that's only about 2.7 miles round trip. But if you're wanting a bit more of a challenge, you can hike all the way up to a spot known as White Domes. That will make the hike more than 6 miles with over 2,100 feet of elevation gain. There are 2 parking lots for this trail. There is the overflow, which you saw just a second ago, but the main parking lot is at the very end of the dirt road. You can also park on the side of the dirt road, but please be sure to pull all the way off so that the cars can get by. But enough about parking. Let's get on to the trail, which is beautiful. On this trip, we didn't have a ton of daylight left, so we ended up just hiking to the waterfall. It's a nice easy stroll, and the elevation only is around 500 feet of gain. The elevation gain seems like it comes mostly in the form of short hills. Some of them are sandy and they are a little bit challenging to climb, but nothing bad at all. V did, however, have a chance to show off her parkour skills. Along the way, we passed a ton of what appeared to be blackberry bushes, but we've never been there during season, so we can't be sure. The trail itself is really quite straightforward. There are times where little trails split off to the sides, but they always seem to join back up. There's definitely no need to worry about getting lost, because with the massive canyon walls, there's only one way in and one way out. After you climb the steep sandy hill, keep an eye out on your right and you should be able to see the small arch that protrudes off the top of the cliff. Even though the short version of this trail is pretty easy, I would still recommend having some good shoes with a lot of traction. There are some sections where you're going to be scrambling up and over some boulders, and the waterfall at the end of the canyon can be very slippery as well. The hike seems to get more and more beautiful the further you get into the canyon. The walls start to get higher and closer together. Some might think that that could be a tiny bit claustrophobia inducing, but it is super peaceful here. Once you reach this giant boulder with a large split in it, you're probably about 2/3 of the way to the waterfall. But that last little bit is going to be mostly uphill. Nothing too crazy, but just enough to get you breathing heavy. One good thing about this canyon is that if you start to get out of breath, you can stop and just take in the view. The scenery here is like something out of a postcard, and don't forget to turn around and enjoy the view down the canyon as well. The soft light pouring into the canyon is definitely one of the benefits of doing this hike in the evening hours. The only downside to doing this hike in the evening is that it kind of dictates how long you can spend in the canyon, unless you bring a flashlight. After a few more short climbs, you're going to come to the part of the trail where it dives down into the valley where it meets up with the waterfall. As we got closer to the waterfall, we started to notice that there were almost like zebra stripes on the rocks. This is actually being caused by water that is seeping out of the canyon walls. You can actually see spots where over time it has eroded away some of the rock. Hopefully it won't come tumbling down anytime soon. This part of the hike is absolutely gorgeous, and if you're going to do this at sunset, I highly recommend leaving enough time to be able to explore this area and the area up on top of the waterfall. Depending on what season you come, there could either be quite a bit of water here or just a trickle, but you need to be prepared to get your shoes wet. One of the key moments of this hike, to me at least, was the waterfall. I mean, how many hikes do you get to do where you hike up a waterfall? It might not be Niagara Falls or anything like that, but it was still really cool nonetheless. Like I said before, you need to be really careful if you're going to hike up the waterfall. It can be super slippery, and if you don't have great traction on your shoes, you could end up sliding all the way back down. If you brought lunch or a snack with you, the top of the waterfall is a great spot for a mid-hike break. There are some elevated spots that are nice and dry, and it's just a really nice and peaceful place. There is also an option to continue on just a little bit higher. This will take you to a really cool curved log that gives you a great view down the canyon. This is pretty much the turnaround point if you're just here to do the easier version of this hike. If you continue on, you're going to be heading into strenuous territory. We did this part of the hike when we came back a couple weeks later to do the canyoneering route, and it is definitely challenging. If you're interested about learning about the full hike, stay tuned because we'll have a video about that up in a week or two. But for now, let's get back to our hike back to the trailhead. Since this is an out and back trail, you're going to head back the same exact way that you came in, but with all the forks, I would not be the least bit surprised if you take a slightly different way back. I know that I've mentioned several times how slippery the waterfall is, but here's one more. Be careful on your way down. If you're doing the shorter hike like we are doing here, you can be done in about 2 to 3 hours, so that makes this a great hike if you want to hit several spots in one day. The other great thing about this hike is that if you don't have a ton of hiking stamina, with the exception of a couple short climbs, the vast majority of the way back to your car is going to be downhill. The other great thing is that if you didn't turn around and enjoy that view down the canyon on the way in, it's going to be right in front of you the whole way out. Even though the easier trail here is still listed as moderate, I think that this trail is a good one for anyone who is a beginner and looking to expand their boundaries. And on top of that, you get a lot of bang for your buck because for such a short trail, the views here are amazing. One thing is for sure, I hold our viewers to the highest level of respect, and I'm sure you already do. But if you visit this area, please practice leave no trace. And if you can, maybe even leave the area better than you found it. I always do my best to pick up at least one piece of trash while we're out on the trail. Every little bit helps. After passing the heart made out of rocks, you are going to be pretty much back at the car. And that's going to do it for the easy hike at Water Canyon. If you enjoy our adventures, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified whenever we make new videos. Check us out on Instagram at thatadventurelife_official. And for all the information about this hike as well as other awesome things to do in Utah, head on over to thatadventurelife.com.